Welcome. I believe everyone's had this experience. You read some information, but when you're questioned about what you read, you really can't easily recall the facts or the details. So let's explore some tools that can help you retain and recall information that you've read. So let's get started. Most anything you read has a topic, which is a broad focus of the information that you're taking in. However, topics must be narrowed down so that you understand the point that the author is trying to make and that you can understand and focus your attention to what the important things are that you want to take away, that you want to be able to retain and recall later to demonstrate that you actually have this knowledge. Say you were taking a writing class and the instructor says, "I'd like you to write me a paper on dogs." Some of the questions you might have for your instructor is, well, what do you want to know about dogs? Do you want to know how they're protective or emotionally supportive? Do you want to know how they can be stinky drool machines at times? Or do you want me to recount a story about my first puppy? You can see that topics must be narrowed down to understand what you want to write about or what the writer wants you to understand about the topic and the main idea. The statement of the narrowed down, focused information that the author wants you to know about the topic is referred to as the main idea, and sometimes the central point. The main idea is supported by details which are referred to as major details and minor details, but they all support what the author wants you to know about any topic that you might be considering. A reader can't be expected to retain all the information about a broad topic such as mountains or fishing. But when you narrow down your focus to the main point and express that in a main idea, the material now becomes logical, relatable, and rememberable, which leads to better comprehension and recall. So instead of just the topic of mountains, we can narrow it down to the main idea of how to obtain a walk-in camping pass at Mount Rainier National Park. In this case, not only do we know the main idea, we can also anticipate the structure of the reading. They're going to probably give us a step-by-step directions on how to obtain the pass. The same with fishing. Fishing is a very broad topic, but we can narrow it down to, for instance, a beginner's guide for fly fishing. In this case, we're not going to talk about deep sea fishing. We're not going to talk about lake fishing in particular. We're going to talk about fly fishing. And so again, it gives us an idea of what we're expected to be able to retain, recall, and demonstrate that we know after we've read the material. All of this gives us focus, and with this focus comes direction, retention, and that all leads to better comprehension. It's always important to understand your goal when you're reading to retain information. Are you going to be given a written test or perhaps a performance test? Are you going to have to give a consistent demonstration of knowledge applied to a task at work or school? For instance, a nurse giving a shot will be something that has to be demonstrated over and over and over again throughout their career. When taking in information, it's important to know that everyone has a different way that they like to take in information. It's usually referred to as a learning style. Do you like to see things? Do you like to hear things? Or are you one of those hands-on type people that really need to do something before they really understand it? By combining all your senses, it helps you to retain information. So we're going to explore some tools of organization that will help you literally put your hands on that information. The two things we're going to look at are the idea map and an outline. First things to do when reading to remember is to consider the topic of the information that you've been presented with, and then ask yourself, what do I know about this topic? So, for a little demonstration, we're going to practice brainstorming on the topic of the oceans. So what do you think about when you think about the ocean? Perhaps it's marine life. Maybe the beautiful sunrises. Saltwater fishing. Or the romance and mysteries of the vast seas. What we have here is an example of a main idea and supporting details on the topic of the ocean. You notice that the stated main idea is the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans have distinguishing features, and the supporting details are below it. The first supporting detail they give us is that oceans border the continental United States on the east and west coast. The Pacific is 63.78 million square miles, and the Atlantic is 41.10 million square miles. Another supporting detail is that there are all kinds of unique creatures that inhabit both oceans, such as the great white sharks and orca whales. You may choose to take notes on the information, but if you don't manipulate the notes and have a hands-on experience with the information, it will be hard to retain and to recall. So let's look at some tools that can help us both retain the information and be able to demonstrate our knowledge of it when we're asked. One effective way of organizing your information is to map it. This is sometimes called the idea web. The idea web, and sometimes referred to as a bubble map, show relationships of the information just like a map or a wiring diagram. In the center, the blue circle is where you put your main idea, sometimes referred to as a central point, but overall it's the focus of the information. In the next layer, in the orange boxes, are major details. This is information that directly supports the main idea. And on the left-hand side, we have the green bubbles. Those are minor details, and minor details directly support those major details, oftentimes giving us examples or further explanations. Consider the map or the idea web of the focus topic that we had on the ocean. The Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans have distinguishing features. You'll notice in the center is the main idea, and surrounding the main idea in the orange bubbles are the major details that support the main idea. So in the main idea, they want us to know that the Atlantic and the Pacific have distinguishing features. The orange bubbles say, yes, indeed, they do. They have similar species of marine life. They border the continental United States, but at different sides of the country. And also they indicate the Pacific is larger than the Atlantic. Now, the next layer of bubbles are those green bubbles. These are our minor details, and they directly support the major details. And so you'll notice that the arrows from the green bubbles are going directly to those orange bubbles to show that relationship, while the arrows from the orange bubbles are pointing directly at the blue bubble to show the relationship between the main idea and the major details. You'll notice that these are simple to create and they're easy to use. They're very forgiving because they're easy to move around and manipulate. Creating it will help you remember the information because it's a hands-on activity. And for those visual learners, it's a really great thing to visualize while you're demonstrating your knowledge of the information that you're expected to retain. The outline is a more formal method to organize material and to show the relationships between the different details and information. In this outline of our information about the oceans, you'll note that the title is the main idea. Following that, labeled with Roman numerals and in orange lettering, are our major details. You'll see the three major details that appear here, just like the three major details in orange that appeared on our bubble map. The information that's labeled with the capital letters and appears in green is the minor details that directly support the major details. So outlines are wonderful ways to show relationships amongst your information. It's also a great way to point to the information that's going to be the most important to retain and be able to demonstrate that you know and have mastered the skill. Organizational tools such as outlines and idea webs can really help you to retain, recall, and demonstrate your knowledge of what you've read. They're a little extra work, but they pay off in the end with more confidence and success when you are ready to read and remember.